the India conference. And I believe this is your first conference in the West Coast. Talk to us about this conference.
Okay. So yes, as you were saying, yeah, this is our first ever India conference at USC. Not only at USC, in all of the West Coast. So the conference is scheduled on 25th of January, a day before our Republic Day. Uh, it's a full day conference. We'll start at around 10 a.m. and it'll go up till 4 p.m. So we are planning to start with the session on policy, then we'll move on to the tech. We'll talk about healthcare. We'll go to the investment banking space, and then we'll talk about how cricket is emerging in the US and where the cricket market is going on. Uh, in between all of these, we have a networking lunch. We'll have some chai pe charcha, and that is how we'll conclude our conference.
Hello, and welcome to the Indian Diaspora podcast. Today's episode is about celebration of Indian culture, Indian power, and Indianness in US universities. We are talking about the India conference at USC, University of Southern California. And today we have two students from the USC community to discuss about the upcoming India conference. Raghav and Tejaswa, welcome to the show.
So much. We both are happy to be here.
Yeah.
Welcome. So, the India conference, and I believe this is your first conference in the West Coast. Talk to us about this conference.
Okay. So yes, as you were saying, yeah, this is our first ever India conference at USC. Not only at USC, in all of the West Coast. We had a few conferences in the East Coast, but no one was doing that in the West Coast. There are a few people and few students which are interested in going to all these conferences, which we surveyed, we came to this conclusion after having a few surveys. They were not able to go to all those East Coast conferences because of funding crunch or maybe some other things. So that is when we thought, okay, we can start building a conference in West Coast. We can bring in all the quality speakers and we can create a whole community and people can learn where India is heading towards in next few years. So that is what the idea was, and that is how we started.
Now, speaking of conferences, right? There are various established, prominent universities in the US, which is excellent ground for intermingling of cultures, intellect from different nations, and a lot of students from India they move to universities in the US, and they are a bridge between not only two cultures but in the future to economies, which is the growing economy of India and certainly the United States. In the East Coast, there are conferences like Harvard India Conference, and you made me realize in the West, a lot of students in US is a large country, right? So a lot of students are in the West or Midwest or Texas, let's say, and going to California at USC could be a closer venue for them. So that makes sense. Now, Tejaswa and Raghav, tell us about USC to begin with, right? The entire ecosystem of University of Southern California, and perhaps the Indian community there. And how did this idea of creating an India conference came to you? Tell us about the journey and the community you're part of.
Yeah, I can talk about that. So USC is one of the probably amongst the top 10 largest schools in terms of sheer volumes in the US. Um, I believe we have 47 to 50,000 students if you combine all the programs. And obviously, a large bunch of that is the engineering cohort, and USC's School of Computer Science is really popular. Raghav and I both come from the MBA cohort where we get a much more diverse set of students. And within that, we realize that there is a lot of interest for what's happening in India. Like our classmates who are from the US, from Ethiopia, from Russia, these folks are asking questions about India. They want to see case studies in the classroom about India. And that's why we thought a forum like this has an audience, not just from people of South Asian origin, but people in general who want to learn about India. Um, the other part of your question was about the community, and once we started doing this, we were really encouraged, and we can talk more about that later, uh, that there are people who have no connection to a university, but who are just really interested in this topic, and they have been passively looking for an opportunity to express this from years, and now they're just happy that there's something in California, or something in Southern California, where they can show up and be a part of this as an audience, as a person on stage, as a volunteer behind the scenes. So it's been very encouraging.
Yeah, intriguing. Now, tell us about the program. When is this conference starting? What's the duration and what's the agenda looking like? Excite us about what will be covered in this conference.
Sure, I can take that. So the conference is scheduled on 25th of January, a day before our Republic Day. Uh, it's a full day conference. We'll start at around 10 a.m. and it'll go up till 4 p.m. So we are planning to start with the session on policy, then we'll move on to the tech. We'll talk about healthcare. We'll go to the investment banking space, and then we'll talk about how cricket is emerging in the US and where the cricket market is going on. Uh, in between all of these, we have a networking lunch. We'll have some chai pe charcha, and that is how we'll conclude our conference.
Got it. Excellent. Now the guests. Can you talk about which guests are coming in the conference, and which other guests possibly you're reaching out to? We want to understand how the stars around this conference and whom local students or professionals from the
Yeah.
diaspora can possibly see and meet.
Yeah, I think we have a exciting guest list for people who like once you start thinking about what is the panel about, you will find that these people are almost perfectly picked. Even when we started out, we didn't think we'd get such great speakers. For instance, on the policy panel, we have uh, Dr. Shrikar Reddy, who is the Consul General for San Francisco for the Indian government. And he has like done World Trade Organizations and inter-country partnership agreements for so many nations that getting him to speak about business at our school is going to be amazing. With him is another person, who Gunjan Bagla, who runs a consulting firm that helps Western companies enter the Indian market. Um, in the healthcare conference, we have the dean of the pharmacy school moderating a session. One of the speakers is Vic Thapar, who is the chief of corporate development at MQ Pharmaceuticals, one of the largest pharma manufacturers in the world. Um, Raghav has been talking to a person from the US cricket team that he is very excited about. So it's a very exciting lineup. I can talk about it for 10 minutes, but I'll leave it at that.
Got it. Got it. And pitch to us, why should somebody attend, right? So if I'm a student in Northern California, farther away from you know USC campus, or
Yeah.
I'm in Texas, or I'm in Seattle, or Phoenix, why should I travel? Or if I'm an IT professional in the Bay Area, why should I travel? To talk to us about what benefit we would achieve from coming to the conference.
Just so, do you want to take it?
Yeah, so benefit, I think there are two types. One is that you will learn about opportunities, especially for me as a student who had spent about 25 years of his life, which is realistically probably a quarter or a third of my life in India. I didn't want to come to the US and forget about all of it. All that I know about the culture, the opportunities,
Right.
the differences and similarities in our countries are really important, and I wanted to take advantage of that. And that's why that was kind of an inspiration from within me for doing this conference, and I wanted to give other students the opportunity to do so. I have graduated and started a career, but I hope that other students get this opportunity. And then on a more logistical side, I know students have budget constraints, but I would encourage them to look at the school's scholarship funding. I was fortunate enough to attend Harvard India Conference last year. Raghav is going to be attending it this year. We both attended them on the USC funding for such conferences. And there's a conference in Kellogg also. So you get these opportunities and you should take advantage of it. It's going to be an amazing opportunity to both meet speakers, to meet people who share something with you as you're all probably beginning your career journeys together. And lastly, I should say it's not just for students. The learnings of it, especially for people who are from the California region, our speakers themselves are coming out of their own generosity from places like San Francisco, Seattle, Portland, etc., flying in to spend time with us. And so I'm sure if they have found that much passion in this conference, the students will have twice or thrice more. interest in what they can take away.
Anything you would want to add, Raghav?
No, I totally agree with what he's saying. So exactly when we started, like as Tejaswa mentioned earlier, we were not sure that we'll get such a great lineup. I think listening to their from their experiences and learning what exactly they did that worked for them, I think it'll help us build a better roadmap for ourselves. So it's the
Yeah.
best place to learn and build a network that can help that can be helpful in the near future.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. And overall, what is the theme of the conference you are celebrating this year? Um,
Mhm.
mhm.
So the theme we talk about India's leap forward. So we see India growing for another 20 years. I personally feel like India will be the superpower in next 10 years, and then another 10 years are for India. We can make a huge impact on the whole world. Uh, Talking about the whole theme of the conference is the India's leap forward, and we'll be talking about all the different industries starting from tech, going into investment banking, then talking about the sports and cricket. So, uh, yeah, that's pretty much it. So we'll talk about the future of the India and how different industries will play a big role in that.
Yeah.
And if I can add, the guidance we have given speakers and panelists is that the scope of time frame we are interested in is the last 5 years and the coming 10 years. So we want to keep it
Okay.
realistic in our current memory and where we can actually make an impact. And
Okay.
hopefully that balloons into something much more. But we want to be tangible about what we all can realistically see and plan for today.
Got it. Got it. This theme of India rising, which was the theme at Harvard India Conference last year, um, India leap forward. And I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs from India, where the sentiment is make in India, but for the world, and going global
Mhm.
for Indian brands. This transformation that this entire generation is seeing in India and from India is so inspiring. I personally, I'm amazed to see the transition happening in Indian economy, confidence over last decade. I'm very excited to see how you're going to celebrate an aspect of that in the west coast of the US.
For sure. Uh, for instance, one of the people we reached out to, I'm not going to reveal his name because maybe next year we might confirm him, but for now, let's keep him
Yeah.
gray. But he is the CEO of one of the top 10 companies in the S&P 500. He made a public statement he reminded us when we emailed him that if he was a student today, he's an Indian origin person. If he was a student today, he would have not come to the US for his masters. He would have decided to stay back in India because there are that many opportunities. And this is someone who is the CEO of the company of that scale is saying that he would have still left that all behind to build his own business or to do something more high growth in India. So it's
Yep.
our parents' generation and our generation have the gap between India and US is considerably different, and the pros and cons are very different. So we are excited about giving the realization of both halves to people here.
Yeah. Hmm. This swagger and this confidence in the nation, again, that's refreshing, right? That person saying, I would have not gone to the US, but rather studied here, participated in the economy. That is something, right? That is something,
Mhm.
All right, cool. Now, moving on, scholarships. I understand you are providing scholarships to students as part of this conference. Talk to us more about that.
Yeah, I can take on that. We wanted to give back to the community in certain way, and I think Tejaswa might remember it. So last year when I was planning to go to the US, I was exploring different websites and looking for all the scholarships that were available for the Indian students. Unfortunately, I was not able to find any. So when we were talking about the conference and we were talking to each other, like, okay, what if we do some sort of scholarship? So we were very early on that, and Tejasa told me, okay, let's be realistic. Let's raise funds first and see whether we are able to make this conference happen. If we are able to raise funds, thanks to our sponsors, we have USC's different schools. We have a like the Consulate of India sponsoring us. We have a few housing companies such as Lorenzo and Heritage Housing, which are local housing companies around USC. Uh, we were then one of our big alums. His name is Navneet Chog. He runs a Chog LLP, one of the biggest law firms in LA. So they were generous enough, and we were able to raise funds. So when we had funds, we were confident enough to start a scholarship program. This year we are starting a small, but every year we are expecting to make it bigger and bigger and give back to the Indian community so that they can easily they can so that we can create an impact on their daily lives when they are living in the US.
Tejas, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I feel so privileged that we're in a place to offer scholarships because we are having
Yeah.
this talking about money 3 months ago. We didn't, we were like, we want to give a chai break, but can we afford chai or should we stick to black coffee? Like that was a discussion we had. We had a pessimistic and realistic budget in parallel in all our accounting sheets, and to go from
Yeah.
there to even being able to offer a few $1,000s to students in surplus of all that we need to spend to make a great event is amazing. And as Raghav said, thanks to the generosity of all those people, I would
Yeah.
encourage students to apply for them. Uh, with scholarships, often people think, oh, I'm not going to get it, so I should not even try. Here, we just want to show that we want to see that you have some love for South Asia. You have contributed in your own way, maybe in your profession, maybe in your extra weekend endeavors, in whatever way. And we want to see how you're excited about applying that at USC. So it's a very negligible uh, essay and entrance application to it, but the reward is going to be 100x if I roughly do the math. So
Yeah.
do take part.
And we might increase the amount of scholarship if we are able to raise more funds. So stay tuned
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah. What is the amount of scholarship, by the way, today?
Today, we are giving $2,000
Yeah.
to one person.
Got
So
it.
that is what
Got
the
it.
scholarship is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you
and
guys are bootstrapping, right? So, yes.
we are
Carry on.
bootstrapped exactly. And we're even considering offering certain concessions on the application fee itself, on the registration fee for the conference. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, stay tuned on our social media. We are on Instagram at IndiaCon
Yeah.
underscore at underscore USC, so you can find the
Yeah.
latest updates there.
Yeah. And shout out to all the Indian businesses in the West Coast, those who have supported you. On behalf of Indian diaspora, we personally want to thank you. And this is what makes our community strong. If you look at various diasporas like the Chinese diaspora or the Jewish diaspora or the Lebanese diaspora, there's this unsaid love and bond that binds the entire diaspora together, and they all support each other in our activities. And I was so glad to hear, Raghav, that your initiative, you reached out to them, but also you got this love and support from local businesses, which would eventually help students towards those who show passion and dedication towards the South Asian and Indian diaspora. So that's a beautiful example of diaspora efforts. um,
Yeah.
so I want to be specific about how can a student apply for the scholarship. Could you give us specific instructions on how they can participate?
Just so do you want to take it?
Yeah, if you go to our website, indiacon.org, pretty simple. There's a scholarships tab up there along with registered speakers, panelists, etc. So on the scholarship tab, there will be three essay questions. One of them is about what I mentioned, that what have you done? How have you supported this community or this topic of interest? And then about what are your aspirations at USC. The scholarship is currently only open to USC students. Uh, and the only thing you need is a USC email ID, and you have to have already registered for the conference, which is a nominal $24 or $25 depending on the tax. So that's all. It's probably, if you sit down to do it, under 30 minutes, all of this. So that's the application process. To sum up, indiacon.org and click on the scholarships tab.
All right.
I want to jump in here. Tejaswa, you were busy with your marriage, and we made a small change here. Uh, now the scholarship is open to all the students from any
Okay.
university. So now,
Amazing.
whenever they purchase a ticket, they just have to enter their ticket number in the application, and that is when they become eligible for the scholarship.
Got it. Got it. I want to call out such as the dedication of this team that Tejaswa just got married recently. And during the day of the marriage, he was calling Raghav saying, "Hey, how's the preparation of the conference going on?" So everyone, that's the love and dedication this team is bringing towards India conference.
That's
Right.
a funny story. I was there. So there was some events going on and his family was doing some traditions and he gets up from the chair and he comes and taps me on my shoulder. He's like, do you have 5 minutes? I was like, bro, you are busy. It's your marriage, not mine. So he's like, okay, let's talk about India conference. I was like, bro, get married first and then we'll see what we have to do with it. So he's like, no,
It,
no, let's talk. I have 5 minutes. Let's talk for 5 minutes.
it's been crazy, Rahul. You won't believe it. I thought I will help Raghav bootstrap the event, and then once I graduate or once my job starts in August, I was going to roll off and like
Yeah,
focus on my work. But this has been so much amount of work that that's just been impossible to do, and it's almost like working a second job.
yeah,
But Raghav and the rest of the team has been incredible at supporting. And as we said, bootstrapping an event is the hardest part. And hopefully from next year we can raise the bar and just keep focusing on the bar raising rather than getting
yeah,
everything up and going.
yeah. No, one can argue in an MBA program, what is true learning? This is the true learning, right? Yes, you go to your classroom and you learn all the concepts of finance and marketing and strategy, what have you. But when you're truly applying this, and Raghav, you are, and Tejaswa, you graduated from USC, this is where it all comes down, right? And this brings me to the topic that organizing something exactly like this, which is India conference, is not an easy task, right? It's almost like organizing an Indian wedding. What did
Yeah.
I do? Tejaswa just had one. But talk to us about all the hard work and preparation that went beyond this. What was the most challenging and hardest thing you found out? um, Share us that learning so that we could actually inspire other groups focused all across the US or internationally in Australia, UK, Europe, etc., who might want to do something like this for Indian community in their campus. Talk to us about how did you
Mhm.
approach this?
Just, do you want to take it or should I go ahead?
Yeah, I can take it. I think the hardest part, and sorry if we're being too MBA about this, we go back to like startup analogies here, but the hardest part, like about any business, is convincing people before you have the product ready, convincing people
Hmm.
to give you money, convincing people to join you when you can't pay them a salary, and all of that has been a challenge. We had to raise funds before we had our first speaker for the conference, and like we had to raise thousands and thousands of dollars from schools. Some people, like we took some examples, some sponsors have a business agenda to sponsoring, some people have an affinity agenda, some people have something else, and creating a business case for each of them, showing them the ROI. The conference will get over on January 25th, but our work will still keep going on to like keep these people interested, to show them the value if we have been able to deliver the value they wanted. From the team, uh, I mean, I think Rahul, you have done an MBA too, right? You know how intense the program can be. A full-time MBA student like Raghav is doing Raghav 15 credits a semester while recruiting full-time for jobs,
Yeah.
while probably part of two other clubs. And to do all of that and to bootstrap a conference is an insane amount of work. And to expect other students to put in that time, you need to really give them a strong ROI themselves. Everybody, you need to create value for everyone in the process. And that's been really hard without having a product to look at. Uh, in like look at last year's conference to know what to do this year. So we just hope that all of this will maybe streamline some things in future years.
Raghav, your thoughts?
Totally agree with it. So the biggest challenge was to sell our idea and make people believe that we can build something out from the scratch on such a big level. I think it was the most difficult part. Once we had a team in place, we brought everyone together, we sat together, and we thought to talk about what do we want to talk about in the conference. So we divided work equally. So we divided work on the basis of their expertise. Such, for example, since they just come from the tech background and he's interested in policy, he started cold reaching out to people in tech and policy. So I started reaching out to people in cricket. Some people started reaching out to people in say healthcare. So we started reaching out to people. We got like a soft yes. They didn't say a hard yes. And then we went back to different stakeholders. We convinced them, okay, this is building up, this is shaping up, and then they started agreeing. So after a certain while, it became a snowball effect. But pulling it off the ground, it was really difficult. And convincing people to work with us and believe in us, it was the most difficult part. But as Tejaswa said, now it feels like so good when we see things happening and things streamlining, and we can see this conference as a big success for us and the USC.
Beautiful, beautiful. Which brings me to the question: 5 years down the line, right? What's your vision for the India conference at USC? What would you want this to become?
I can take it. Tejaswa can take it. We talk about it every day. So this year when we started, we were expecting, to be honest, we were expecting it to be a half-day conference because we were not sure whether we'll be able to bring all the speakers because it's a Saturday and people might be busy with the Republic Day celebrations. Even though like Council General of India is hosting the flag on 26th, he he's generously coming on 25th morning and returning back on 25th afternoon so that he can be there for the next day's event. So we were expecting a lot of people to say no. We made them believe in us and we made them agree to come for the conference. Thanks to them, we expect this to grow every year. 5 years down the line, I expect to have 1,000 attendees instead of only 300 attendees, and the budget of the conference should grow manyfold. Outside of that, I see this scholarship going up from $2,000 to maybe 20,000 or 50,000, depending on how much money the next classes are able to raise. So that is where I see it going. Moreover, I also see a lot of like-minded people coming together and building something really big, which can make a huge impact everywhere.
And I can add on two other aspects. One is on the team. I think right now it's a core team of very hardworking people. So we're all jack of all trades and trying to be masters of them too. In future years, as we are able to divide and conquer, and there are people who can only focus on various parts of the conference, we can raise the bar. This year, for instance, that CEO that I mentioned a few questions ago, that person was all but yes, but we were a little late to reach out to him. And
Yeah.
like once we had major companies who would be interested in sponsoring us, but they do their budget planning in
Hmm.
June. So we need to reach out to them in April or May, and we hadn't
Yeah.
ourselves known that we're doing a conference in April or May. So all of these things, we hope that happen better next year. And in terms of speakers, there's so much potential. The people in the first edition itself are so amazing that I'm sure they're going to tell their friends, and their friends are going to see it on social media, and everybody's going to want to be part and meet all the students and other panelists.
Absolutely. And, always just remember you guys were the founders, right? The founding group. Any movement, be it, Goa Carnival or, the Harvard India Conference, which is so established and reputed conference, or, Salesforce, Dreamforce conference, right? What have you. All of it gets started in 1 year. And organizing that is not an easy feat, but for future generations, right? You leave a legacy and a mark that they take on their shoulders and just expand, right? Uh, for me, as somebody from the Indian American diaspora, having this in the West Coast, I'm really excited that now we have a venue, we have an opportunity to connect with the diaspora, and of course, established personalities from India, because a lot of them travel and hobnob and meet them in one a venue. That is exciting. That is exciting. Um,
Agree.
yeah,
I agree.
yeah. So, moving on, let's come to India, right? Um, Talk to us about the recent changes in India. We mentioned India leap forward, right? But
Mhm.
you guys live in India. You are getting educated in the West. You are the next generation that is going to tie the bonds between the two countries. I would broadly say even East and West, right? Talk to us about the role that India can play in the world, and the role world can play with India.
it's a very broad and hard question, so
Yeah.
I'm just going to take a
Yeah,
stab at
yeah,
it. But
sure.
let me talk about world can play in India. I think the world already kind of needs India and likes to have India support in so many ways. If you are a company like, say, Deloitte or Microsoft, you probably employ 20,000 people in India. You're probably employing almost 20%, 25% of your workforce comes from one country, which is more than the country that you're headquartered in. It matters in terms of how you understand the culture of those people, how you understand the values, their skills, their strengths, weaknesses. If you are a country like, if you're a company like Facebook, you probably have 50% or more of your users coming through WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, etc. in India. If the Indian government gets annoyed at you and TikTok gets banned, you lose access to a third of the world's population. So it's just really important to
Yeah.
understand the geopolitics, the economics, the better and the worse. There are many many things that can be improved. There are things that are great, and like for on the improved, it could be accesses to business, predictability of policies, reducing paperwork and red tape. On what's already great are things like, if any of you have been to India recently, you have UPI payments, the whole infrastructure network that is now copied in Singapore and is being picked up by other countries and emulated. You have the ONDC network, and the one of the founders of that was at the USC campus last year, and how they're built of fundamental rails of making payments, and anybody can be an Amazon. You don't need to have that much investment to start. A marketplace is ready for you. You just come with the business opportunity. So there's just so much happening in tech, in manufacturing of different companies, that uh, in many different niches you can, and that's why the conference has a variety of topics to explore these things.
Hmm. That was the role of world with
Well,
India. What do you think it would be the role of India in the world?
Raghav, before I go to you, want to try?
You can give it a shot, then I'll just add my thoughts in it.
Role of India in the world. I think that's really interesting. I mean, as Raghav mentioned, I'm kind of interested in policy, looking at like what's been happening. There's so much unrest in the world, in Ukraine and in Israel, and India's stance on all of these things. While the whole policy previously we had of a non-aligned movement, and then today, oh, different flavor of that, has all been really interesting. It matters in how the fuel prices are set and how your profit margins go from 7% to 4%, and then whether you rather just put your money in a different asset class and not start up a business in the first place. So all of that is really interesting. I remember at Kellogg there was a conversation with Raghuram Rajan, who talked about the importance of manufacturing for India's growth, and services cannot be the backbone of it. And now you can see that Apple is setting up a manufacturing plant in India, and the whole China plus one policy, and how India and Vietnam are benefiting from it. So India's role in the world is very interesting. I personally would be excited if the next phase is through R&D. Luckily, we have a lot of inherent tech talent, and we have two panels on tech at the India conference, so you'll be excited about that. But all that tech talent can hopefully turn into innovation and R&D at home. I think there was a study by the Indian government that about 80%, the number might be off by a bit, but 80% of all the silicon or semiconductor engineers in the world are Indian. They may be
Yes.
working for NVIDIA, but they are Indian. So capturing some of that talent and IP in India would be exciting for the future.
Mhm. And I personally, adding there, I personally believe India was initially seen as a country where services can be outsourced from. But moving forward, we'll be the one who will be innovating. Uh, just to give an example, a few tech companies like big tech, I'm talking about big tech. I was talking to the people in there, and they were telling that how 40% of the roles, product manager roles, like which are on the top level, not the service roles, are moved back to the India. So I see it going in that direction, wherein we innovate and we bring in new, as they just was saying, we do research and bring in new products. So the role of India is going to be changed. We'll no longer be seen as people who do service work. We'll be innovating and bringing in new products.
Mm, great answers. I purposefully asked this question because I wanted to understand perspectives from younger India. Fundamentally, the generation born post the economic liberalization of India, they are very different versus the previous generation that had part colonial hangover. Right? There's this
Mhm.
new sense of confidence, as we were talking about, resurgence, a very strong identity, and even confidence in their capabilities and economy that we bring in. And you know, this is an India that's going to, or this is the generation that's going to write the story of India. So I wanted to hear your thoughts and perspectives on that, Raghav and Tejaswa. Um, what I took away was manufacturing beyond just service. Second was human capital, right? Um, who runs most of American corporations at middle management level, certainly, but also in top management in select cases. The tech talent, the talent in science, PhD, not only US, but also Germany and different parts of the world, and also in India. And the third is that we are consumers of various products. You made me think when you said, uh, TikTok or Twitter's, a sizable chunk is from India. And a product manager in Menlo Park in California has to think about how to design products not only for the West, which it was done historically, but also for an emerging segment of the population in Asia and certainly from India.
Yeah,
So,
if I can give an example there, I mean, first of all, India is so lingual. We have so many official languages and so many non-official ones. And while there are probably more English-speaking people in India than there are in England, but that's still a minority of the population who actually speaks English. So you need to develop in vernacular languages. I remember an
mm,
example on reading on Twitter where this company realized that they have a shopping cart icon, but most of the people in India using their app have never pushed a shopping cart because that's not how they don't go to
Yeah.
supermarket to shop. So they didn't know that's the cart. And the cart had to be replaced with a bag because the rest of the world knows what a cart is, add to cart, but India didn't know that. So you're right, that Menlo Park person maybe should attend India conferences and like try to get this insight as he tries to cater to a third of his customer base or her customer base.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Great example, great specific example out there. Um, and so even historically, right? Until 18th century, China and India had 80% of the world's GDP. The market was India, has been India and China, Asia specifically, right? The entire corporation that actually began from Netherlands. The first company was the Dutch East India Company, and then the East India Company, so on and so forth. India was the market that a lot of Western companies or companies around the world targeted. Not only production, manufacturing, right, getting raw materials, cotton or spices, pepper, from India, but also manufacturing and selling it in the India market. So what if we have local manufacturing, innovation, think cotton, making it a cloth and selling it back, and also market consumerism, a combination of those three in India and beyond, Facebook Menlo application, that's the role India can play in the world. Fascinating,
Yeah,
fascinating. Yeah.
it's fascinating. And as you said, that it reminds me of a interesting book I recently read. It's called the Goras and the Desis. It's
Okay.
one of the editors of it is Gulcharan Das, who is the former
Yeah.
CEO of Procter and Gamble and a
Yeah.
major author now. In fact, he had also agreed to come for the India conference, but we didn't have the budget to fly people in from
Yeah.
India, so we had to politely decline. But that book is amazing. That book talks about how you went from being from business owners to people who were peons in British companies to people who slowly started certain communities in India started buying controlling interests, and then just the hangover of how businesses are run, and there's a private equity flavor. India has a concept of promoters, and we still have the major
Mhm.
companies, Tata Group, Ambani Group, and all that in India. And
Yeah.
all of that is a hangover of the British time that started probably 150 years ago. It's still true today. So post liberalization, also history still matters, and that's why India's leap forward does look back a few years too. It's not just looking forward.
Yeah. Well said. All right. I'm going to move on. Next topic I want to move is the Indian student community, right? I know you are a subsegment of that in the West Coast and in USC, right? But a lot of our listeners, they are Indian students from Australia to Europe, think Germany or UK, certainly Canada and US, right? When a
Mhm.
student goes from India and studies in a university abroad, how does their relationship with the country back home, India, and their new karma bhumi, their workplace, how does that evolve? How do you see getting exposed to new ideas, new friends? You said you have friends from Ethiopia or Europe or different parts of the world, right? So you get new ideas. So one way you're getting globalized, and another way you still hold that roots of being from your motherland, right? How does that evolve moving to a university abroad?
Yeah, I can take that. Uh, to start with, when I went to the US to start my MBA degree, initially it was very overwhelming. Uh, Everything was very new. The way people work in the US was very different from India. Initially, as I was saying, it was very overwhelming, but with like in a few weeks, when you get to know people, I think it becomes more comforting, and you start to learn more and more. I personally am a kind of a person, even if I have learned a lot, I won't leave my roots. So I'm still connected back, and I can see how the things are done differently. Even if it is the same thing, how it means different in different cultures. So for me, it has been a great learning experience, to be honest. I got to learn from different perspectives. I learned how a thing can be done in 10 different ways in different cultures. So I think that was the biggest learning, and that is why I chose to do an MBA from a school in the US rather than just doing it in India. So I personally believe most of the students do it in a certain way, but some other students choose some other path, and that is totally fine. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And just again add if he wants
And,
to.
and Raghav, what changes in you? What changes in a
Hmm.
student once they leave India? If they leave India, they go to a foreign university. Mahatma
Hmm.
Gandhi went to University of London to study.
Yes.
You know,
Hmm.
what changes in a student once they are born in an Indian system? They grow out there and they go to a US university. As you reflect, what changed in you during this process?
Mm, that's interesting. So if I talk about myself, I believe personally, if my values are still the same, but the way I work now has changed. Initially, when I was working in India in my one of my companies, I used to plan for not a very long time. I used to plan for a short period of time, and then I used to start implementing different things. Whereas now, I plan for a long period of time and then go as per the plan. And if I hit a roadblock, I still go back, and that is what exactly how you should proceed, right? If I hit a roadblock, I reevaluate the plan and then move forward. But initially, I used to plan a bit less than what I do today. So maybe it's because I see different problems coming out from when I sit in a room with people coming from different places. I see different problems coming up because there are certain problems that we see in different countries. As Tejaswa was mentioning, no one has seen a cart in the shopping malls here in India. Like a lot of people have not seen a cart in the shopping malls, whereas they have seen a bag. So there are certain other examples in other different countries too. So looking into that perspective, I think it broadens my thinking capability and approach to different problems.
Hmm. They just for your thoughts.
Yeah, I'll try to mix an answer to the last two questions. I think that amazing things you can pick up from both. I did not realize there would be so many differences in cultures, and I'm so appreciative of the fact. Right now, I'll give you an example for like some things that I've seen better in the US is a default obsession with quality. Everything that has to be
Yes.
done well. Nothing can just be done for the sake of it, which works well. Like I work in a consulting firm, so the quality is like non-negotiable. That is to be there irrespective of everything else, and it's fascinating to see that. Whereas if you're in India, and the times when quality can be a hampering, like the concept of jugaad, it can often like you can give an Indian this much and ask them to do this much, and then find out a way whereas a person from some other nationality might just culturally have a hard time doing that, or might just wait that give me 2 more weeks for more clarity, then I will start doing this. So the pros and cons, and you try to switch on and off that part of your brain. Like when you drive in the US, I keep one car's width with the other car, but when I go back to India, I can't just come in between our two cars and have to drive almost bumper to bumper in traffic. And that same mentality have to go on and off in business depending on the problem, on the use case that I see. And I think
Good
it
reflection.
also your experience abroad depends on where you are. I think studying in California, now living in Seattle, has been a great experience because the Indian community is doing amazingly well in these places. So even if you get stereotyped, you're stereotyped in a way that doesn't really harm you. Whereas
Yeah.
the MBA program gave me an experience to travel to Australia, and there were encounters where the Indian community is of all walks of life in Australia,
Yeah.
unlike California, for example. And you see people looking at you, treating you in different ways, and then your experience in that country and what you take away and how much you miss home or don't miss home really differs for people in Europe and Australia and your other viewers, I would say, compared to the
Yeah.
US.
Yeah. Good reflections. This ability to switch when you're in US and then when you're in India, when driving, for example, is a great example of, you know, the outer layer of growth that happens, but the core remains the same, right? And um, that's very interesting. All right. This brings us to the last segment of the conversation, rapid fire. Right, we're going to move to some fun rapid fire
Oh,
question to bring out unstructured answers from your experiences. All right. All right. Are you ready? So the way you'll answer is Raghav, you go first, and then Tejaswa, you answer. Okay. So
okay.
the first question: the biggest culture shock you had in America.
Networking to get a job.
When people ask you how's it going, and you're just supposed to say good and not actually like tell them how is it going.
Right. All right. Next one. One myth about India that Americans have.
We are a poor country, and everywhere you go, you only see dust and animals roaming around on the street.
I was gonna say cows too, but Raghav took that. I would say that it's a privilege to be anywhere outside of India, but it's also a privilege to be in India, depending on where you are and what you can be doing. And I wish that perspective would change. That it's a choice. It's not a privilege that we are here.
Hmm. That myth is broken. Um, okay, next one. You guys are in California, Hollywood, right? So the most popular Indian actor, actress you have observed uh, among, California people or Americans that you were surprised by, and go beyond the Amitabh Bachchans and Shah Rukh Khans. Uh, did that ever happen?
Can't think of any. I think like Priyanka Chopra, a lot of people know her,
Yeah.
and a lot of people also know Diljit Dosanjh, and I'm not amazed by that. Or I'm not surprised. I think I personally wanted Diljit Dosanjh for the conference, and I tried all the possible channels, but it didn't work out. Everyone I used to meet, I used to ask, "Do you know how can I reach out to Diljit?" But unfortunately, I was not able to get him. So I believe it's Priyanka and Diljit.
Okay.
Um, I think more than the Bollywood stars, there are people like Mindy Kaling, for example, who's really popular because
Mm,
she plays so many roles.
Yeah.
Hassan Minaj, for instance.
Yeah.
Um, and but I go back to Shah Rukh Khan in an interesting example. I've seen our
yes.
classmates from the Middle East and African regions who know Shah Rukh Khan and have watched more movies than I have. Uh, like twice as many movies as me. They know his dialogues in Hindi, they know a few words of Hindi just because Bollywood is that popular, because not all countries have a film industry of their own. And then the closest film industry they are associating with is Bollywood in that part of the world. So that was, I had never thought of that, and my mind was blown when I met people who don't speak Hindi but they can quote Shah Rukh Khan.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, I was thinking that for anyone who is,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Shashi Thorur has a TED talk on soft power. of India on this, and that's the soft power.
Yeah.
Back to you, Raghav.
No, I was thinking that we only want to talk about people who live more often in LA, so that's why I said, oh, it's Sri Lanka.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right, cool. Now, one myth about America that Indians should break.
I think Indians think that it's a fairyland. As soon as you go there, everything becomes so heavenly that yeah, it's super awesome. I'm not saying that it's not great. It's great, but it takes the equal amount of effort, as much as it takes in India to build something up.
Hmm.
I think I feel a myth is that people think that they have it all, uh, but I have found that the people who they have a lot of the fact of American innovation capitalism. I've seen all of that come to life. I've seen that spirit alive in the US. I've seen working in consulting. I've gotten to work in a couple of industries, and I've just seen it on a whole different scale than what I did in India. And that does have to do with the culture of not stopping, and the some of it is just faith in the fact, as it's now trending, American exceptionalism is a buzzword in the last 6 months, and some of that is true. And people should realize that it's not just all gifted from above. It's worked on every day by the people in the country.
Yeah.
So that's not a myth. That's a reality. Tejaswa,
Yeah,
the American exceptionalism, but it's not a
yeah,
fairyland.
partly a
It's not a
reality. It's not a
Yeah.
fairyland.
Yeah. Well said. All right, cool. Last question. Your favorite Indian restaurant in California?
Oh my God, I can talk about that every day. It's Bar LA. It's in downtown LA. So it's my favorite go-to restaurant whenever I'm feeling low or when I feel like I want to eat good Indian food. I go to that place. I recently explored another South Indian restaurant, which is in Artesia, which is Podi Dosa. I go there sometimes to have dosa. They really have a nice dosa. I think it is nearly as good as something you get in Karnataka. So
Yeah,
I
cool.
love these two places. But
Everybody,
Bar it's
yeah,
Bar
everybody.
would
Raghav
be
is
my
from
first preference
Punjab,
every
by
day.
the way. I just want to say Raghav is from Punjab, but he loves his dosas. Sorry,
Yeah.
Raghav. Back to you.
I'm a big time foodie, so I try all the different cuisines. I go to different restaurants. So that is one of the biggest expense that I have in the US,
Yeah,
like exploring different restaurants.
love it. Tejas, for yours?
For me, it's probably Paradise Biryani Point in Artesia again, and they have
Mm,
branches in multiple places in California. But biryani is a comfort food, and it's a simpler place than Bar Bar, but the food never disappoints.
Awesome. I'm gonna go to these next time I go to California. Awesome.
that's awesome.
All right, both of you.
If you come
Uh-huh.
to LA and I'm there, hit me up and we'll go together.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I I would love to try. I'm looking for a good dosa place, right? So I'm gonna try that. When a Punjabi says he likes a dosa, I'm sold.
No, it's a really good dosa. You should go there and you should try podi dosa with
Okay.
aloo palia on the side.
All right.
It's really nice.
All right. I love that. I love that. All right, guys, let's bring this home. You guys are the pioneers who are starting the India conference in a major university in the West Coast, bringing access to Indianness, among the Indian diaspora in and around West Coast, right? So thank you and kudos for that. Finally, team, if there's a message you would want to give to the diaspora in America, internationally, once again, a closing message. What is India Conference at University of Southern California? Why should you attend? Give us a summary.
India Conference at USC is the first of its kind event, not just at a university, but probably on the entire West Coast, after a long hiatus amongst many other similar schools. You should be there to learn about stuff that you're probably missing out on. We have got industry leaders coming and talking to us about what they are seeing. You should come here to meet amazing panelists, amazing students, amazing professionals. Who will help you on your own journey, as you've always heard of the Indian concept. Indian hospitality is above the world. You will see some of that in action. Yeah, I think that's why you should be there. And maybe you'll like to meet me and Raghav, and we can take you out for pori dosa.
Yeah.
Awesome. with that, love from the entire Indian diaspora to both of you. And also thank you for giving perspectives from a student's journey. Uh, you know, um, that's one of the first steps one can take in becoming a global citizen. So kudos to that. Everybody, thank you for joining the podcast today. Signing off. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
Thanks,
much.
everyone. Thanks, Rahul.
Thank you, Rahul. It was great to be here.
Excellent.